Hello, everybody. How you doing? We're here. We're here. I know. Finally, at last. Sorry, I had a little bit of a tech call I had to do before we started here, but we're here. It's me. It's Travis Williamson, Esquire, and Ali Apperson. Ali's gonna kind of try to keep an eye on you guys in the chat and try to see whenever you guys come up with really good questions that she can possibly interrupt us at certain points with. So keep in mind, the odd moderators and Ali will be watching out for any really good questions. But basically, if you haven't been living under a rock, as Travis puts it, you basically know that today the state filed a response to the motion to remand and stay. And then very, very quickly, the decision or the order from the Court of Appeals came through, basically of how where they landed on it. And there is some confusion about this decision. There's some people, are confused about what it means and what it, the way things are going to end up going and how things are going to now look moving forward. So hopefully with Travis and Ali and I, we're going to be able to clear up some of those things. And, so that's what we're here to do today. We may throw up some documents at various points here. We may throw up the documents from the state's response. I'm not sure. I haven't been able to find a document of the court's decision just yet, but I have heard what it says. So hopefully maybe if one of these two has that, they'll be able to put that up on the screen at some point. But anyway, we're going to try to show you some of the documents and go through this in a way and try to explain it in a way that y'all can understand it better. So Travis.
As the day progressed, there was, a lot of speculation. So first, the appeal has not been denied. The appeal is still fully intact.
Right.
On the 17th, a motion for stay and remand was filed for her to test the bones. The court today, after they got the state's response, they denied Zellner's motion for stay,
right,
motion for remand. That does not mean they're denying the testing of the bones. They're just telling her that it's not appropriate to bring a motion to test the bones part of the appeal at this stage. So
basically, we're not going to put the appeal on halt for this. You're free to do it. You're free to go and do that with the circuit court, if you like. But we're not going to halt everything here to allow you to do that, essentially is what they're saying.
Right. So, no, they didn't deny the appeal. Her brief is due now February 1st of 2019. They gave her
for the current appeal, right? Yes, absolutely.
What was supposed to be due December 20th is now due February 1st.
Right.
Now, the one question raised by this is some of the legal commentators in the case, Henry's objecting. Some of the legal commentators on what happened today have indicated that she would have to wait to file the motion for testing in the circuit court under 974-07. She would have to wait until this appeal is decided. I don't necessarily agree with that. No one's shown me why she has to wait. I think she can file that next week. So in other words, she could take the motion for remand and stay, relabel it, motion for DNA testing pursuant to 974.07. I think she can file that in the circuit court next week. And the circuit court case and the appeal would parallel each other.
Right. Right.
Other legal commentators have said, no, under Wisconsin law, you can't file something. You have something in the appellate court. You can't file something related to the same case in the circuit court. I could see why that is, which is a 974.06 motion for post-conviction relief. And that's pending in the appellate court. That statute under subsection 2 says it's part of the original criminal case. That would, and there's a good reasoning why you wouldn't want to allow multiple 974.06 cases. You have to get everything ready. You file your supplements, you file your whatever, just like Catherine Zellner did all the way through August of this year. She kept supplementing it and adding to it. Um, she supplemented with the computer disk, late produced computer disk. She denied that summarily. It went up to the Court of Appeals, the same Court of Appeals. They said, no. No, sorry, Judge Angie, we're going to send this back to you and you need to issue an order and determine whether that disc was produced late or not. And on September 7th of 2018, 3-4 months ago, he went ahead and denied that. And, that's the appeal we're on. And so they don't want 4 or 5 simultaneous 974.06 motions going at the same time. I don't see the same thing for 974.07. Again, 07 is for DNA testing. And the statute says a defendant at any time can ask the circuit court for testing. If those 3 requirements are met, it's relevant, it hasn't been tested before, or if it has been tested before, there's a new test, and so it'll tell you something. But
right.
So there's a bit of a disagreement among the legal people on whether she can go forward with that sooner rather than later. But that's one question that remains out there. But a lot of people have been
For me,
asking.
it matters. I hope somebody finds out what the deal is. Does she need to file now and do that now because now it's new? See, here's what I would hate to see happen, Travis. I would hate for the actual ruling to come down that she should have filed it now and she waits because she figures just because she's anticipating an argument. And then we get to a year maybe down the line or whatever, the appeal's done, maybe it didn't come out fully in Stephen's favor, and she's looking to get her foot back in the door and she wants to use the quick DNA testing. But then at that point, because it's been a year or something, that they want to then deny her. So I think it's very important to understand how the legal shakes out on this so that she goes forward properly.
So in most states, you pretty much have to specialize in post-conviction relief, which I don't, but we have a subspecialty in it because it's so fraught with peril that if you don't do certain things at certain times, you've waived it and you screwed up. And
right.
And so let's back up. We saw this in Brendan Dassey when the magistrate judge in his 90-something odd
91 page
opinion, they had two grounds for that writ of habeas corpus. One was ineffective assistance of counsel, and the other was that the question was coerced. The judge started in the meat on the first issue, the ineffective assistance of counsel, and he ruled that, look, you're claiming the ineffective assistance of counsel was based on the Strickland case, the Sullivan case, which is a lower standard. But they said you should have based it on Strickland, and then I could have done something for you. But you didn't. My hands are tied under EDPA or AEDPA, and I can't do anything for you on that. And then he goes into the second issue and lambasts the state of Wisconsin and the 2 investigators on the way that they coerced that confession out of Brendan and then granted him the relief. So that's an example where they said, you didn't state the right case that you wanted relief on, and I can't go back and fix that for you. My hands are tied. I can't give you relief based on that. So she may have just filed this motion for stay and remand just so they couldn't say, hey, you should have filed this in the appeal during the appeal. Now, they can't do that to her.
Okay.
Now, say, hey, I did. I asked for a stay. I asked for a remand.
As soon as I found out about it, literally within weeks.
And no, you can't come in and claim and hit me with that now. And so she could have easily have pled that, for purposes of non-waiver, just like what you were talking about, that they can't pull what, King's X, catch 22. I got you either way.
Right.
No, I've got this on record. You've told me, no, it's not appropriate now. So the big question is whether she'll file her motion in the circuit court for testing of the bones sooner rather than later.
Right.
So Scooby had a question.
What's that?
She asked, she would like to know the difference between what's going on with the appeal and with the testing that Zellner's requesting and the circuit court. Like, where are we right now? What are the other things that are going on? Basically, I think is what she was wanting to know.
Okay.
How all these things are tied together right now and what's going on.
Right. So the way I understand it, and Travis, yeah, okay. So the way I understand it, and Travis can correct me if I'm wrong here, but basically what's happened is she tried to get a remand and stay of the current appeal so that this whole thing with the quick DNA testing could go to the circuit court. But what she was intending was for the whole appeal to remain on hold while this happened. So that's what she was hoping for. That's not what's happening. So what's happening is the appeals court is saying, we're not saying you can't do that testing. It's still there. It's available to you to do if you would like. But what they are saying is the appeal's moving forward. And we're not going to put everything on hold for that to happen. But they are saying that she's free to take that to the circuit court and run that through so that it could eventually become part of the record or whatever, if she had to come back to the appeals court again after that. If that, I mean, there's a lot of ifs and whatever's in that. But anyways, the point is that they're saying, no, the appeal moves forward. We're not going to stall everything just to go and figure out this issue real quick. So that's the important thing of what's being said. And what Travis is pointing out is that according to the statutes, he doesn't see any reason why she can't go take this quick DNA testing motion, relabel it for the district court, the circuit court, and just file it next week or whatever, next day that the court's open. So he's saying he doesn't see any reason why that is prevented, but he's also acknowledging that some of the legal analysts that are talking about this are saying that would be a problem, that she wouldn't be able to do that they would require her to drop her current appeal to do so. So that's why I was saying to Travis right now that I feel like Zellner needs to really make sure and find out absolutely for certain how this all shakes out, so that if she needs to do it now, she does it now. If she needs to wait because she would have to drop the appeal to do it, then for me, she needs to just go ahead and make sure how this plays out so that she still has the option of the quick DNA testing later. And that's basically the way I understand it, what's going on. And Travis may have something else to say.
I think you explained it great. The only thing I would add to that is she did that once before. There was a 97406 motion that Stephen filed that she picked up on when she came into the case. And then she kept asking for a stay in that. And then finally, she just decided, after carefully analyzing it, she filed a motion to voluntarily dismiss that appeal. And at the same time, she filed the motion for testing in the summer of 2017. And so
all right.
Then she got the She went ahead and did her testing through her own experts. And then she went ahead and filed her own 974-06 motion. That was denied in this summer. It was part of MAM2. All of a sudden, the judge issued a decision on it out of the blue. And then, so she's done this before where she's dismissed the appeal. This one, I don't think she's going to dismiss in order to do the additional testing, but I could be wrong. There's a couple of reasons for that. She's got so much developed now. She has all of these pieces fit. So, but let's answer the question. The appeal is she's appealing the judge's denial of her
1,200-page motion
without a hearing.
And subsequent like supplements and that sort of stuff.
So, so to back up, so to file an appeal in an appellate court, you have to have a statutory basis. That's kind of counterintuitive, but what I mean by that is there's got to be a statute or a rule that says you can appeal something. Some things are not appealable in certain states, like the judge sets up a bond, a bail bond. In some states, that bond, you can appeal that it's too high. In other states, that's not appealable. So Chapter 974 of the Wisconsin state statutes covers when you can appeal in a criminal case. 974.01, I'm just going to refer to after the 974, but these are all 974 now. 01 is if you're trying to appeal a misdemeanor. 02 is the regular appeal process that you think of after a criminal conviction. And you are appealing that to the Court of Appeals, and then you can appeal that to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. So 02 is normal criminal appeals. There's no 03 or 05 currently. There's no 03 or 04. 05 is if the state wants to appeal, and it sets out what they're allowed to appeal. If it's not set out in that statute, the state cannot appeal it. So 06 is post-conviction appeals, and it explains when you can file it and what the basis for it is. Basically, it says that it's limited to post-conviction, have a sentence that you're claiming is a violation of the U.S. Constitution, which is what Zellner's motion is covering. Ineffective assistance of counsel, prosecutorial misconduct,
right,
so on and so forth, that the jury didn't hear a true theory and evidence in the case. That'd be a violation of the 14th Amendment. And so that's the basis that you can file it under. And then subsection 2 says it's to be considered part of the original proceeding. It's not separate, which means you can only file one motion at a time on that. And then it says, and this is the key part, subsection 3, unless the motion and the files and records of the action conclusively show that the person is entitled to no relief. They've written this in the negative, and Wisconsin constantly does that. I guess people around there talk that way. Unless the motion and files and the records of the action conclusively show that the person is entitled to no relief, state that in the positive, unless the motion doesn't show that there's no relief possible, then the judge, the circuit court judge, shall cause a copy of the motion be sent to the district attorney, and they'll file a response that they shall grant a prompt hearing. That is what she is appealing, that she didn't get a prompt hearing. And then D, that the judge didn't determine the issues and make findings of fact and conclusions of law. And if you go back and look at the order denying the motion for post-conviction relief, at the end, Judge Angie puts in that magic language that defendant has failed to show conclusively. I find conclusively that the defendant has failed to show that he's entitled to any relief. And so she's appealed that and said, you needed to give me at least a hearing, and you needed to make findings of fact and conclusions of law, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And then 07 is a completely separate statute. And it says motion for post-conviction DNA testing. It says at any time after being convicted of a crime, a defendant can file an action in the district court for testing if the following apply: that it's relevant, that it's in the actual or constructive possession of a government agency, and that it's not been previously tested. Or if it has been tested, that there's now a new scientific technique that wasn't available before.
Right.
And so, there's nothing, there's 13 subsections. There's nothing in it that says you can't file this motion if you have another appeal under 974 pending. And but so, getting back to the original question, the appeal that's been pending since
July of 17.
Yeah. That, and which her opening brief was due December 20th. That is right on track. It's like nothing happened, and
nothing's wrong with it. It's still right there. Yeah. Right.
February 1st. The testing that she asked to do in her motion, December 17th, that is now on hold in terms of the appellate court's not going to stop the appeal. They're saying file your brief on February 1st. So there's now a question: can she proceed and ask the circuit court here in the next week or two to start that process of testing the bones? Or is she going to have to wait until after this appeal is decided? And we just don't know that yet. But based on
that's the thing she needs to figure out, though. I think she needs to make that a priority of figuring out which way they're going to go on that.
Yeah, and knowing her, she's already figured it out. She already knows where she's going.
Sure.
But
did you have something, Allie?
Yeah, L. Fallon was asking for some kind of clarification on what exactly was denied today. I think a lot of people are under the impression that what was denied today was Zellner's testing, like the request to
the test. Yes, that's correct.
Like they're saying that she cannot have this testing done, and I think that's what a lot of people might be thinking.
Right. Okay. So that's not what was said, though. That's okay. So glad you brought it up. That's not what was said. Just to add further clarification to it, what the appeals court said is she's free to have that testing done. They're not standing in her way. Okay. What they are telling her, in the way that they denied her, is they said they would not be putting the entire appeal, the appeal that was what she was supposed to be filing on December 20th, that appeal. Okay, that they're not going to put that on hold for this. That's what they're saying. Basically, they're saying the appeal moves forward. So what they've denied her is that they're not going to let her do it while everything's on hold. But the appeal is going to move forward, and they're telling her she's free to do it with the district court or whatever if she wants to. Okay, having said that, what Travis and some of the other analysts that he's referring to are questioning at this point in time is not whether or not she can test it. It's whether it's about when she needs to do it, essentially. So does she need to file it now in a timely fashion so that they can't try to say she waited too long? Or does she need to wait until this current appeal is settled? Or because like in something Tracy Struncy was saying, and I don't know how many of you out there went to the Facebook that are on that Facebook page, but basically a lawyer, she was saying that um that basically the lost my train of thought. Do you have an idea what I'm trying to get at, Travis?
Yeah. So you've stated it correctly. The only thing that the court said today is we are not going to put the appeal on hold while you pursue a motion for testing.
Right.
And they said 974.07 provides that if you want to do testing, new DNA testing, file it in the circuit court.
Right.
We're not going to wait for that to happen. And so that's it. And so she can file that petition for testing in the circuit court next week, or she can wait until after the appeal's decided. If I were her, I'd just go ahead and file it next week and have the state come back and, try and say, no, you got to wait.
And that was what I was going to say, is that Tracy brought up the fact that if the appeals court, just moving forward might help, because if the appeals court says you get an evidentiary hearing, once she's in the evidentiary hearing, she can bring this in. Or she can ask for this. Is that true?
Say that one more time.
So what Tracy was saying is that if the appeal moves forward here and the Court of Appeals goes, yes, okay, we do not agree with Judge Angela, this finding of fact and judgment of, whatever needs to happen here, and they order the evidentiary hearing. What Tracy was saying is if she gets her evidentiary hearing, she would then be able to ask for this testing at that point. Is that true?
Well,
if it gets sent back to
when Allie was on there, is she, I just asked her point blank, why are you saying she cannot file a 974-07 motion next week? And then she summarily answered that and said, well, under Wisconsin law, you can't file something in the circuit court while you have something pending in the appellate court. And generally that is true.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of subsection 2 under the 974-06 part says this is going to be considered part of the original criminal case.
Mm-hmm.
And I would agree with her wholeheartedly if it was another 974-06 motion that Kathleen was trying to file on behalf of Stephen, but she's not. She calls it a different mechanism. It's not a different mechanism. It's an entirely different legal basis for jurisdiction. And that basis is separate statute 07, which is DNA testing and the requirements of that. And there's no similar provision under 07 that says it's part of the original criminal action.
Right, okay.
So I don't see anything in 07, and they don't cite anything in the response that the state filed that said they said she has to wait, but they didn't cite anything that said she had to wait until the appeal's over. They cited some cases that they admittedly said aren't directly on point, but this is a new separate issue. But the statute is clear that you need to, if you want to file that, you got to start in the circuit court. And
Right.
I think that's all of the appeals court was saying today is, yeah, that's correct. You do need to start out with the circuit court. We're not saying you're not entitled to do testing, and they don't even discuss whether she has to wait or not. They don't get into any of that. They just said, we agree this is a new separate basis and you have to start in the circuit court.
Right.
That's all they said.
So the answer to my question is if an evidentiary hearing is granted, that would happen in the circuit court or the district court, whichever one, and then she would then be able to ask for that testing. Is that true?
Well, I don't know if she said that. If she said that, then she said conflicting things. If Zellner gets an evidentiary hearing on 4 issues, ineffective assistance of counsel, they should have hired a blood expert and they didn't. The burn pit behind Stevens' garage could not have been the primary source, the original burn area. Kratz's press conference was clear prosecutorial misconduct, and whatever. Let's just say those 3 issues. They're going to grant an evidentiary hearing on those 3 issues. It's not going to say it's a free-for-all. You get an evidentiary hearing on whatever you want. So I think she's wrong. You don't get to say, oh, okay, by the way, I want to retest these bones too, and I want an evidentiary hearing on that. If she said that, I think she's incorrect.
Well, I think what she said is she would be able to ask for it. I think that's the way she worded it.
You got to file the motion in the circuit court.
Yeah.
And say,
okay.
we want to test the bones. And if she's correct that you can't file another proceeding in the same criminal case when you have something up on appeal.
Right. Okay.
But if they remand it for an evidentiary hearing on certain things, and it's back in the circuit court, and she could certainly add that and ask for it.
Right. So yeah, okay.
It's
So
going to be a waste of time because if she's stuck with Judge Angie's, it's going to be a big old mess if it gets remanded on issues for an evidentiary hearing and go on it.
I would hope that if the appeals court sees the merit on their own, I would hope that they would also see the merit of not having Judge Angie involved anymore. I would hope if they see one, they would see the other.
Yeah, because if they remand it for an evidentiary hearing on one or more issues, it means in their opinion there were things that need to be explored.
Right.
And I just read from the statute, and that she needs to make findings of fact. But what good's it going to do to send it back to a judge that couldn't see an issue to begin with? Just said, oh, it's conclusive that got no good faith basis on any of these issues. And a table of contents, I think, is 10 pages long on the issues.
Right.
I mean, there's an issue after issue after issue. And whether you agree that in making a murderer, it's that part where it's like, oh my gosh, she just brushed this all aside. It's like she didn't even read the thing. And,
absolutely. Yeah.
It's like, well, and then they started focusing, okay, let's work on this motion to vacate. Let's see if the state will, step up and say, yeah, we were working on additional testing, and let's see if we can get her to withdraw her opinion on this. And of course they couldn't. And then Judge Angie had some really snotty things to say in her opinion. She's just,
Yeah.
Sheboygan. I don't know if any of your subscribers are from Sheboygan, but you sure got a real piece of shit for a judge out there, I'll tell you.
Yeah, she's a piece of work, but I know that Zellner's already asked for a change, and it was denied because it was essentially premature. So I'm sure once it becomes possible again, I'm sure she'll be asking again. Because it's for me, Judge Angie is clearly not really looking at it, and that was made pretty darn clear to me when she tried to explain the hood latch DNA in Zellner's motion and all that sort of stuff, and trying to explain why that wasn't important. It became very, very clear to me that she didn't understand.
Allie, you're right on responding to O'Fallon. Kathleen filed a motion to recuse Judge Angie this summer, and Judge Angie denied it, but she didn't make a flat out denial. She kind of hedged the denial and said, at this point, it's premature. And it was because she was just dealing with the issue of the computer records and the late produced disc. And so she left that open. She clearly left that open. Judge Angie did, on whether she would recuse herself or not. And I agree with Allie that it is sent back if Angie, we call it sua sponte, which is fancy for on her own. She doesn't on her own say that she wants another judge assigned to the case. I'm sure that motion would be renewed. Motion to recuse her and would ask for another judge. If the appellate court doesn't say we think it would be appropriate on remand that another judge be assigned. Let's see, somebody was telling Allie that they had a question. It was right above there, said they had a question. Well, go ahead, type your question, and Allie will get it to us.
Are you talking about Thomas?
Oh, Thomas.
Yeah,
On August 2017, Zellner had the Court of Appeals dismissed Avery's January 2016 appeal from his first PCR for ineffective counsel and a bunch of other stuff. Can Zellner just file same appeal again as she did in her PCR?
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. So that's the appeal. She went ahead and dismissed, but you notice the way she did it. She filed her petition for post-conviction testing in conjunction with that request to dismiss. And then so in other words, she got the Court of Appeals to rubber stamp her how she wanted to proceed with the case. And they didn't outright rule, yeah, this is the way to go, but she did it very carefully. She filed two motions simultaneously. She filed the motion for comprehensive testing. She filed the motion to dismiss that appeal based on her motion for comprehensive testing. And she said, rather than delay this appeal while we do the testing, it just seems to make more sense. Go ahead, dismiss the appeal. That's gone. Now we have the testing. Well, this is different. Why should I want to just dismiss this, in my opinion? Now she's done all of this testing, filed a motion for post-conviction relief, which was denied. And now that's up in the appellate court. she didn't want to dismiss this. She's got all of this work that she's done and
Right.
hundreds of thousands of dollars at stake. When back before, when this appeal, which was filed by Stephen, by the way, on his own, then she substituted into the case, and that's what she was left with. Well, she didn't have all of this stuff as a foundation for the appeal, and so she's like, well, you know, I can't appeal this. I can't do much with this. What I'm going to do is see if the court will give me testing, which they did. I'll dismiss this. I got my testing now after hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now I'm going to file the motion for post-conviction relief. That got denied. She appealed, and that's where we're at now. Right. So she could, but there might be, it's on a different footing now than it was back in 2016. But
right.
that's a very astute observation, Thomas.
Thomas is a smart guy.
But
I don't agree with all the conclusions he comes to, but he's a smart guy. Sorry. Anyway, I don't know if you know who Thomas is, Travis, or if you've been aware of him on the channel.
I've seen the name a lot, and
he believes that Stephen is guilty, 100%, gung ho, but he believes that Brendan is 100% innocent.
And he's not the only
one that feels that way.
The only one who feels that way, and he's certainly not the only one who's been attracted to the case that felt, you know, passionate about what happened to Brendan. You know, I went over that opinion today, that 90 some odd page opinion of the magistrate judge, and just, you know, the wording he used about Lynn Kaczynski, and you know, that you don't work to improve or prove the state's case. You just don't do it. And Lynn Kaczynski violated the most sacred trust there is between a lawyer and a client. And you know, they ended up, the judge ruled against them on that, but they brought up a good point. That, you know, they said, well, the state keeps saying, well, we didn't rely on any of that, but he pointed out that phone call between Brendan and his mom, the state used to try and impeach him, and they used it in closing argument. And, you know, they argued the flip side that, well, he said some of it happened, you know, so some of what he said in the confession is true, but, you know, and they did a good job arguing, Nyrider and that team, that, well, the something was going to the bonfire. That's all he did, and helping clean up a spot in the garage.
Right.
Nothing about all this other stuff. But like I say, they argued it a certain way in their motion for their petition for habeas corpus, and the magistrate judge said, hey, you argued it this way over here. You didn't argue it this way. And so there's nothing I can do for you. I can't get over here from here because you didn't argue Strickland. You argued the other case. Right. And so basically they were telling him you should have argued both in the alternative, and maybe I could have done something. But then he goes into part two, that the confession was, you know, coerced in violation of Brendan's Fifth Amendment right. But yeah, she did dismiss an appeal in 2016, but the case is an entirely different posture right now.
Right. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and pretty much, I think we've covered quite a bit of it, what we needed to cover here, and kind of giving everybody some things to think about. There's another YouTuber who goes on Friday nights, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this one off and let that YouTuber have the airwaves. I am going to close out by saying one thing. I cannot say this enough. To me, I know the courts may not agree with me, or from what Travis says, the legal aspects of this don't agree with me. But the fact of the matter is, I feel that by the state giving away bones that are in those piles that came from the Manitowoc County gravel pit, that the fact of giving bones from those piles to the Hall box concedes by stipulation that they are Teresa's. That's the way I feel about it. Travis tells me it's a little thornier in the legal arena, but truly that's how I feel about it. I feel that the quick DNA testing on any bones that were handed over is moot. To my mind, the state has already stipulated, so that's the way I feel. Although I know it doesn't exactly work out that way in reality. So, anyways, that's just one thing I wanted to say before we go. Any final thoughts before we go, Travis, Allie?
Allie, do you have anything? I have a couple, but let's see if Allie has anything to add.
Statements? No, not really. I don't have statements. I had some questions, but
No, go ahead.
I just told everybody.
You got a few minutes.
Nope, we can take a question or two. I don't want to be mean to everybody. I just want to be respectful of, other folks. So I'm just,
Probably one of the most common questions is, do you expect Zellner to wait until February 1st to file this, her next motion in the appeals court, or do you think she might do it earlier, since she very likely had it already prepared on the 20th?
That's a really good question. And so what would be the reasoning for her wanting to file it early? It's because the state's brief is due 30 days from when she files her brief, not 30 days from February 1st. So if she files it earlier, then the state's got to get their brief in earlier. You may want to file it early. I think she's going to want to tweak it a little bit, knowing that it's not going to be stayed, and that she's not going to be able to proceed with the testing with a blessing from the appellate court, that if she wants to do testing earlier rather than later, going to have to go to the circuit court and attempt that. I suspect it's going to take her a week or two just to get it tweaked, and I suspect she'll file it a day or two early because it's pretty much all ready to go, like you said, and she doesn't want a chance, something happening, a car breakdown, an airplane, she may want to do it with some hoopla. She may want to. She's known to do that. Kind of schedule, make sure press is there at the port in Wisconsin when she may want to file it in person, and so on and so forth. And because of her scheduling, a week earlier might be better, but it's totally up to her how the scheduling works. But that's a good question.
Right.
What else do you have?
Just probably one of the most common reactions to any sort of denial is the judges are corrupt, the state is corrupt, and what is their legal basis for doing this? It's corruption, and I know that's not.
They're not corrupt. Sorry. Here's the legal basis.
I don't think there's any corruption either. I think, yeah.
407, motion for post-conviction DNA acid testing of certain evidence. Subsection 2, at any time after being convicted of a crime, the person may make a motion in the court in which he or she was convicted. So that's technically, it's the Manitowoc circuit court, but it's been reassigned to Sheboygan.
Right.
It says at any time, you file a motion in the court you're convicted in, not the appellate court, not the court in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I mean, it's all the court today did is say, look, the statute's clear. You need to do this in the circuit court. Number one. Number two, you haven't shown us conclusively why we should wait. That's all they're saying. They're not corrupt. The presiding judge, Riley, it only takes one judge to rule on a motion, and the presiding judge ruled on it. He's a Republican. That's all the Republicans are corrupt in Wisconsin. I don't know whether they are or not, but
Right.
Nobody ran against Judge
Angela?
Angie.
Right.
When Sheboygan are content with her. Calumet County elected Weigert sheriff. It was just a primary, two Republican sheriffs running against each other, two candidates in the primary. There no Democrat even filed in that county. I can't go out there and fix the underpinnings, the infrastructure for what y'all have there. You guys need to put up good candidates and turn out to vote. So if anybody's corrupt, it's the voters. Get out and vote. Get out and
for the people, by the people, folks.
Support candidates that align with your issues. But I'll get off my soapbox on that, but I don't see any corruption in this.
I don't know about, sorry, somebody said something. I don't know about Judge Angela being Republican or anything. I just think Judge Angela is not a good judge. So, because somebody was asking about being Republican or not. I don't know. For me, you may have mentioned that she was, but for me, it's not an issue of her being Republican or not. It's an issue of her. I think she's bad at her job. So, not because of her political affiliation.
No, I didn't mean to say that, but the realities are that Calumet County and Manitowoc County are conservative counties. And if you run as a D, you have no hope. You got to run as an R.
Right.
There are, doesn't matter if you're D or an R. I'm just trying to point out what the reality is.
I understand. I just wanted to address that person's comments because it was like, it wasn't about that. So, sorry, go ahead.
But no, I saw that a lot to do, Allie, that you saw denial. Okay, well, it's got to be corrupt. It's got to be. I haven't seen anything at this level, and are the 4 judges that voted to reverse magistrate judge in the 7th Circuit, are they corrupt? Are the 9 justices of the U.S. Supreme Court, we couldn't get to 4 to do to take the case on cert? Are they corrupt? When you're at this level, local politics, local judges, I don't think they're corrupt, but I think they're very mindful of wanting to be reelected. And I think they're very mindful of what the pulse of the community was. And I don't think this is any surprise to anybody, but when it was a mob mentality in the media. This case was tried in the media, and this is the result you always get, is when you allow the lawyers to try the case in the media, and you allow police to do news conferences, this is always the result you get. One exception to that may be the Casey Anthony case, but I think people like Nancy Grace just shot their mouths off so much that it had a backlash effect, and
right.
They were surprised they didn't hear all of this evidence that was supposedly going to come in to convict her, and they way overcharged that case. But in any event, no, denial at this level, not seeing any corruption. But are we seeing what a typical conservative judge in Wisconsin would do? Yeah, but I mean, this isn't the first appeal for Stephen. I mean, he had the regular appeal under 974.02. He had new attorneys assigned. They went in and demanded to see the cabinet that the magic key popped out of. They demanded to see a bunch of evidence that's all documented in CASO. Their briefs are online. The trial court denied it. They appealed it to the Court of Appeals, the Second Circuit in Wisconsin, and then they appealed it to the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and they denied to review it. And people are familiar with that's just, it's difficult to appeal a case. And
post-conviction case, right? That's what you meant, right? Post-conviction case. Sorry, go ahead, Allie.
I just want to add one thing. I know that at least, for people like me who don't really understand all the legal stuff and the laws and all that and the process in the courts, it can be really confusing or frustrating, especially to have denial after denial after denial, and it feels like it just makes it drag on and on and on. So you instantly probably feel, okay, there's corruption. There has to be, right? But when you look at it legally, which I don't understand, so thank goodness for Travis explaining these things and Tracy on Facebook, or I would never understand that there really are legal good reasons for these denials, even though we don't agree with them, and it's definitely not what we want. Like today, this denial was not unexpected, and they did have legal basis to deny her.
So, and that's a really, really good point, Allie. I'm glad you brought that up. So there's the facts of the case, and we're familiar with all kinds of them. Sweat DNA. I'm not even going to spend 30 seconds on those bones, 20 seconds on those bones. This is the primary burn pit. This primary burn location. We can go on and on and on about what we disagree about on the facts. And so, and there's even a couple of people that subscribe to this channel that, they just have a different view of the facts. And a lot of the subscribers here, you've dug into the case, read the transcripts, look at the exhibits, check for yourselves to determine what the facts are in your mind. There's a huge difference between a court ruling upon facts and applying legal principles to the facts. And so we have, a good example in Brendan's case that they said, they appealed it through the state courts. They said no. They filed a writ of habeas corpus in federal court, got that magistrate, asked him to look at it. And then on the confession, the interrogations, he detailed his view of the facts. And, he set out the law correctly, said, courts look at a number of factors: age, mental disability, length of the interrogation, looked at all of the different factors, and he laid out, from his viewpoint, why he felt that was coerced. And then, the Seventh Circuit didn't agree with him. He said, the facts aren't clearly erroneous, and so we're going to overturn his decision. But it's important to understand when the court's deciding something, or they're deciding a question of fact or a question of law. And this was purely a question of law. They didn't say, "Oh, we don't believe her that this testing is legitimate." They didn't rule on that. We don't believe that quick test DNA is legitimate. They didn't rule on the facts.
They're not for an opinion, right?
All they are ruling on is that
they're not halting the appeal.
The statute in question requires you to start in the circuit court. It's a distinction that whenever there's a decision, a denial, what specifically are they denying? I keep calling it, you got to put it in context. And, what's the context of this thing? And they're just saying, no, we don't agree with you, Ms. Zellner. This isn't the place to bring it up. The place to bring it up is the circuit court. And we've waited long enough. And I even mentioned this in a live last week, that I was a little concerned when this thing came up about the computer testing, that when the order came down from the Court of Appeals, they put it on a very fast track when Kathleen had to have her brief in. And I felt at that time that they were starting to get tired of this thing sitting around, and they wanted to get it moving forward. And that they really made a good decision on her behalf. They said, no, Judge Angie really needs to decide this issue before it gets up here. And they said, but, we want this brief with this amount of time, and we just don't want this thing sitting and lingering.
Right. Yep. I think that's about a pretty fair assessment of it. So,
do you have anything else, Allie, because we want to dispel these misconceptions?
Well, I don't want to upset anybody, but Scooby doesn't agree. Well, she thinks that there is some stuff going on, and I do agree, and I want to just make sure that I am clear. I know that they're doing this legally, but the reasons that the state is fighting all of this, in my opinion, is a dirty reason. It's not a good legal reason. It's a dirty reason. They've got their own motives, and that is what I feel like is behind this. And unfortunately, they're able to hide behind the law and make it all legal. But so I do agree with Scooby, and I understand that there is a difference too. That's all I wanted to say. But no, that's all. Other than that.
Look, I'll put it this way, Scooby. If you really want to go off on all this stuff with Travis, we will come back. I'll go live either here or on my other channel in 2.5 hours. Okay. That way we're giving the other person who's on YouTube tonight an opportunity to have the wavelengths to themselves. But in 2.5 hours, we'll go back on if you guys are in the Hangouts and the interest is there. I will go live from one of my channels.
Make a big plug for tomorrow, Captain Crunch breakfast.
Okay.
Quick one.
I got to work that out because Mark's saying that would be midnight for him. So we got to work out. It's probably going to be a late morning type thing, maybe even early afternoon, unfortunately. If midnight is him, my 8 o'clock is his midnight. Yeah, so we might. I'm not sure how that's gonna work. I have to work it out with Mark Hodnott. He's over in Australia, so
we'll work it out. But tomorrow we're gonna pound out this Captain Crunch stuff.
right on. So that's about it, folks. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you found it informative. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe. And oh, by the way, Travis, everybody wanted me to say thank you, or there were some people wanting me to express thanks to you. I also want to express that thanks to Allie. Thank you for being here. Keep an eye on the chat, bringing in the really good questions. Thank you for that.
Oh,
Thanks for having us.
Allie and Diane and everybody on
Diane and Allie, the moderators, JB,
wrecking crew, your wrecking
Diane.
crew on digging this stuff up, and Allie again got me the decision, and got me access to this, because unless we can read it and analyze it, we're just spinning our wheels. And there was a lot of misunderstanding of what was going on today, because people were just limiting themselves to the
yes or no being
summary.
Right.
And so couldn't. But everybody, you're very, very welcome, and we'll just keep following this thing closely, and we'll do our best to give you the most accurate legal picture.
Right. And if, like I said, if you guys are really wanting me to go live again in 2.5 hours, pour into the Wrecking Crew Hangout and let me know. Make a roar. If you guys are roaring that you want me to go again, particularly you, Scooby, I'll go again tonight. So just want to let you guys know. But if the interest is there, essentially, that's what it comes down to. Alrighty, so that's about it. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe. We'll see ya.